You were qualified. They liked you. You made it to the final rounds, but the offer still went to someone else. That's one of the most disappointing and disorienting things that can happen in a job search. Because by that point, you've had so many conversations with people at the company, you've probably pictured yourself in the role. And then when the email comes, we've decided to move in a different direction. It's really disappointing. I'm Danielle Bradley. I'm a career coach for mid-career professionals. And today I want to talk about why this happens and what you can do about it. It doesn't always mean that you've done something wrong. Some of the reasons are completely outside of your control. And some things you can influence. Knowing the difference can help you move forward clearly. And spiraling into self-doubt, overhauling everything that you're doing based on that one outcome. So why do these rejections feel so personal? Well, getting rejected earlier in the process still hurts, but it's a lot easier to get past it. You didn't invest as much in the process, and it's easier to tell yourself that it just wasn't the right fit. But a rejection at the end of the process hits very differently. By that point, you've gone through multiple conversations, received positive signals throughout, and had real time to invest emotionally, not just intellectually. So when the offer doesn't come, it feels much more personal. And sometimes it's worth examining to see what might have happened. But sometimes the decision had very little to do with you at all. The first step is trying to understand which situation it actually is. So let's talk about reason number one, when the decision was completely outside of your control. This is one that no one really talks about, but it's very common. Companies go through full interview processes, and then at the end, sometimes no one gets the role. There may be budget changes, headcount freezes, or a leadership change that redefines everything, including what this role might have been. Or maybe there was an internal candidate that was in consideration the entire time, or a reorganization that led to them putting the role on hold. All of these things can happen. And when it does, even a strong candidate isn't going to get the offer. And then they walk away thinking they did something wrong when the answer is that it had nothing to do with them. Now, this is not a reason to stop reflecting on your own performance following rounds of interviews. It's just more of a reality check. You can't control budget freezes, but you can control how you show up through the process. Reason number two could be that someone else made their case more clearly than you did. When we get to the end of a process, everyone in the mix is usually super qualified. The company has already determined that the candidates that are in the final rounds can do the job. So the decision often comes down to something more specific than credentials or past experience. The offer tends to go to the person who most clearly connected their experience, the results that they solve directly to the types of problems that the company is having. They position themselves as the solution to those problems. They're the candidates that leave the hiring managers thinking, this person understands exactly what we're dealing with. They've already solved something like this, and that's the type of work that they love to do. That can seem subtle, but it's an important distinction. When you position your experience more in broad terms versus being very clear about the types of problems that you can solve and position yourself as the solution, that makes all the difference in the world. Reason number three is your answers might have stayed too general. This is a big one. And it's connected to what I said previously, but it's important to delve deeper into this. So many mid-career professionals have a lot of different experiences, and they default to speaking about it in broad terms sometimes in interviews. They talk about the types of things they've done, the scope of what they've managed, the scale of their responsibilities. And all of that context is real, and it's worth sharing, of course. But late in the process, hiring managers, they're trying to make a decision. They want to know how you think, how you lead, how do you handle tough situations. They want stories that are concrete enough to give them proof, to give them true confidence in what you would do in their environment. One of my clients was consistently getting to the final rounds before we started working together, but she was not getting the offers even though she received positive feedback. When we looked at her interview prep and what was going on, it became very clear. Her answers covered the right territory, but stayed at the level of scope and experience. It stayed too general rather than delve into the very specific outcomes and results that she was able to generate. In her next process, she was able to give much deeper, detailed stories of how she was able to accomplish such incredible results in her career. She tied everything to outcomes that were relevant for the role she was interviewing for. She got the offer. Reason number 4 is there might have been some late stage misalignment of some sort. Sometimes the rejection comes from something that just didn't come up until the final stages. Maybe there was a misunderstanding about the scope of the role or the autonomy that would be involved. Or maybe there were some expectations about remote or hybrid role that were not fully aligned on each side. Or maybe there was a mismatch in leadership style that just didn't come up until the final stages. None of these things necessarily mean that you weren't the right person for the job. It just means something in the fit didn't land as expected, or something changed partway through the process. That certainly happened to me when I was still in corporate after a layoff. There's a specific company that I interviewed with who actually flew me to a different city on New Year's Eve of all days. I was one of the 2 final candidates, and I was really excited about the position. And they came back a few days later to say that neither one of us, the final 2 candidates, were receiving an offer. They explained that the senior leadership at the company made a decision to go in a completely different direction in terms of what they were looking for the role. Not something that I could control in any way. Reason number 5, references and background checks can play a role. References alone will rarely swing a decision from a yes to a no, unless something really goes wrong with that. But by the time a company is contacting your references, they've already decided that you are the person that they want to make the offer to. So the reference check is usually a confirmation, not a deciding factor. That said, it's worth managing that part of the process carefully. Make sure that the people on your reference list are aware of your most recent work and also aware of the details of the company that you're interviewing with and the role. When you manage your references carefully, they can reinforce things that you have been saying you're great at, and that can lead to you being able to better negotiate your offer. So what do you do if you are going through a late stage rejection? Well, give yourself a moment before you do anything else. You need to process that disappointment, of course. Once you've given yourself some space, here's how you can review honestly. Ask for feedback if the situation allows for it, but know that some companies have very strict policies that they will not provide feedback to candidates. But if they're open to it, it's always great to be able to get some feedback. Now do your own self-evaluation. What do you think went well? What you might have done differently? And what didn't go so well? Really reflect to see if there might have been some misalignment, maybe around compensation, around scope of the role, working style, leadership style, and check with your references. And then take a step back and really review everything before you make any decisions to see if your approach needs a major overhaul. One rejection is not a signal to rebuild your entire strategy. Now, if you see a consistent pattern across multiple processes, that might be worth looking into in terms of strategy and also getting some support. Getting close and not getting the offer is really challenging, but it doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means that something in the final decision did not line up. And the most useful thing that you can do is understand what's worth reviewing and what's worth just letting go of. And the best antidote to rejection is having multiple opportunities in play at the same time. So you want to keep your job search active until you have an offer that you love and accept. Subscribe to my channel for more advice for mid-career professionals. And if you'd like some support for your job search, for your interview prep, you can book a call with us. It's a Get Hired strategy call. It's free and the link is in the description below. And watch this video next, why you're not getting interviews and how to fix it fast. I'll see you in the next video.